They never told you the truth about King Solomon. They painted him as a wise old king, sitting in a golden temple, reading scrolls and handing out judgment. But what they left out is that Solomon was a Tartarian. He wasn't just wise, he was powerful. And he didn't walk everywhere like a common man. He flew. He soared across the even in a flying vessel made possible by something they don't teach you about in school or church. A white powder called manna. Manna wasn't a spiritual concept. It was real, tangible. It was made from pure gold that had been processed using techniques that the ancient world understood, but we've been told are mythical. Solomon knew how to take gold, true untarnished old world gold, and transmute it into what we now call monoatomic gold. This white powder held the key to energy, to motion, to mastery over the natural world. This was common knowledge in the Tartarian Empire. This was normal technology, and they've hidden it from us ever since. When you dig through the ancient records, you find the same story repeated again and again, from Egypt to Sumer, to India to Israel. They all speak of a miraculous white substance. The Egyptians called it mefkazeit. The Hebrews called it manna from heaven. The Sumerians gave it to their gods. The Indians described flying ships powered by sacred powders. These weren't metaphors. They weren't poetic images. They were describing the same lost tech, manna. Solomon used manna to create ships that could float effortlessly. Not by engines or propulsion or the ridiculous idea of jet fuel. The powder changed the nature of objects. It altered their weight, their density, their interaction with the world. The ship became light as air, controlled by thought, frequency, and flow. This was pure Tartarian science based on vibration, resonance, and the true forces of the realm. Electromagnetics, sound, light, and pressure. Not some fake force like gravity. That's just another distraction. Just another way they keep us blind to the real mechanisms that power our even. Solomon's temple wasn't just a spiritual center, it was a power station, a transmitter, a processor of gold into manna. That's why so much gold passed through his hands. That's why emissaries from all over the world brought him endless treasures. He wasn't collecting wealth, he was collecting fuel, raw material for energy, levitation, travel, and with it, he ruled the skies. They erased this truth on purpose. The Freemasons, the Knights Templar, the Vatican, they swept through the ruins of Tartaria and wiped the slate clean. They didn't just rewrite the maps. They rewrote the physics, the science, the very rules of the realm. They turned alchemy into fantasy. They made flying ships into fairy tales. But the evidence remains. It's right in front of us if you know where to look. Why do you think the most ancient texts talk about feeding gods with golden bread? Why do some ancient tombs have traces of white powder sealed in jars? Why did the pharaohs cover themselves in gold and seek to live forever? Because manna wasn't just for flying. It extended life. It enhanced perception. It unlocked potential. The elites of the ancient world knew this. And now, the modern elites, descendants of those same secret orders, have taken that knowledge for themselves. They laugh while we burn coal. They hoard while we drown in bills. They act like they're sending rockets into space, while we stay grounded, chained to a false history and a fake science. Space isn't real. NASA is a circus, and the stars aren't burning balls in a vacuum. They're lights in the firmament. And Solomon knew it. That's why he didn't waste time with roads and horses. He took to the skies in a ship that defied their fake rules. Even now you can see traces of Tartarian tech. The giant cathedrals with antennas disguised as spires, the domes that channel sound, the impossible buildings half buried under layers of time. They say erosion, but we know the truth. Mud flood, a global reset, a wipe of history so complete that even King Solomon was demoted from a flying Tartarian ruler to a mythologized biblical king, all so they could hide the tech, hoard the manna, and keep us crawling. And let's talk about that reset. When the mud came, when the skies darkened and the old world was submerged, they didn't just destroy buildings. They destroyed memory. They erased blueprints. They scrubbed the books. The survivors of the old world were forced to live like animals under the control of the new rulers, bankers, priests, and parasites. And every trace of the flying ships was buried under lies and taxes. But some knowledge escaped. The real alchemists, the ones not working for the Freemasons, passed down stories. Some went underground. Some encoded their secrets into symbols, into paintings, into architecture. Some of those codes are still out there, waiting for someone to crack them open, waiting for someone to reclaim the old ways. Solomon's story isn't just history, it's a roadmap. A signal that we are more than what they tell us, that we were meant to rise above their lies, that the even was built for exploration, connection, and freedom. Not borders, not fences, not speed limits and toll booths. So ask yourself this. Why is gold at the center of every empire, every religion, every vault? Why does every central bank hoard it while telling you it's obsolete? It's not because it backs currency. It's because it backs power. Real power. Energy, healing, flight. And they'd rather you spend your life chasing numbers in a bank than transmuting gold into something they can't control. Solomon's flying ship wasn't a miracle. It was technology, Tartarian technology. And that's what they fear most. Us remembering, us rediscovering, us breaking free from their lies and reclaiming our natural birthright to live with true energy, freedom, and movement. This is why they keep the skies locked down. This is why they chemtrail the firmament. This is why every space agency is just a distraction. Because if we remembered what mana can do, if we remembered how Solomon flew, we'd never bow to them again. We'd never pay for their fuel, their power, their fake science, or their system. The even is wide open, the old technology is calling, and all we have to do is remember.